A drug lord, a car chase and more new details make Ortiz sh00ting more complicated. Like any Santo Domingo hotspot in the gritty eastern section of the Dominican Republic capital, the Dial Bar and Lounge was packed last Sunday night, its patrons engaged in lively banter, sipping cocktails and looking at their cell phones. One of the most famous, then a thin, baseball cap-wearing male hopped off the back of a motor scooter, walked up to the 43-year-old Ortiz, known as Big Papi by legions of fans, and fired a single bullet into Ortiz's back, sending the ex-slugger to the floor. Initial reports, answers may lie in the cracks that are developing in Ortiz's carefully crafted persona. On one hand, there is the Boston baseball icon who has hosted his own charitable golf event in the DR each year, drawing sports world VIPs and raising millions for Dominican and New England disadvantaged children with pediatric heart care needs. On the other hand, there are shady links to the slugger going as far back as his early Red Sox days. Behind his mega 6 days after Ortiz was shot, he remains in a Boston hospital, while Dominican authorities have implicated no fewer than 12 people in connection with the attack, including the alleged gunman, 25-year-old Ralphie Ferreira Cruz, and 2 jailed suspects who are accused of somehow masterminding the hit from the prison cells where they are currently serving time. A Dominican source, "They coordinated this from jail?" says the Dominican source, who has knowledge of the Ortiz case. The source asked not. The Dominican source also is one of 3 people who described an alleged incident involving Ortiz in the DR that took place months before the shooting. The sources claim, while current reports say there could be additional arrests in the shooting case, the Daily News has learned that U.S. law enforcement agencies, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, are actively involved in the probe, and that a powerfully connected drug kingpin believed to be nicknamed the Abuser may be one person of interest to authorities. The DEA can't comment on an ongoing investigation, said a DEA spokeswoman. 2 law enforcement sources, however, confirmed that the DEA is investigating the Ortiz shooting, and it is possible the U.S. State Department and other agencies are assisting, too. Multiple messages. At least 2 of the suspects have criminal ties in the U.S. The Associated Press reported that Ferreira Cruz, the alleged gunman, was indicted in a 2017 Clifton, NJ, armed robbery case but never apprehended. The AP cited, theories on the motive for the Ortiz shooting have varied wildly in the hours and days after the shot was fired. The main theory, videos taken moments after the shooting show clubgoers violently attacking Eddie Feliz Garcia, the driver of the scooter. Another video, and on Friday, the gunman, Ferreira Cruz, shouted to reporters from a holding cell that he had mistaken Ortiz for another intended target and mistakenly shot the slugger. A prosecution spokesman, Eric Montilla, disputed that account, saying that he doubted any Dominican would not recognize David Ortiz and that Ferreira Cruz was making up a story to avoid being attacked in jail. In addition to the federal glare and the ongoing probe in the DR, Eddie Dominguez, a former resident security agent for the Red Sox when Ortiz was on the team, revealed some troubling elements of Ortiz's off-the-field life in the book Baseball Cop, published last year. Dominguez wrote how in 2005, while he was an RSA and still an active Boston Police Department detective and a member of an FBI task force, allegations arose about a member of Ortiz's entourage betting on baseball games, prompting Dominguez to open a BPD/FBI investigation. Felix Leopold Dominguez, who became a founding member of baseball's Department of Investigations in 2008, wrote that he later met with Ortiz, former Boston manager Terry Francona and former MLB security chief Kevin Hallinan at Fenway in 2006 to discuss manga and the gambling evidence. Ortiz, Dominguez wrote that he turned over his information on the manga investigation to an FBI task force, and that in 2007, multiple law enforcement agencies carried out the wide-ranging case known as Operation Barbershop. Manga was later, I wasn't gonna comment on this episode, but someone out nowhere once again tried to diminish my image just to sell a couple books, use sick for some dollar in his pocket. MLB duo. Despite his celebrity, sources say Ortiz seems to have invited trouble in his home country. One Dominican source, "Everything is fishy in the DR," adds the Cuban-born Dominguez, who spent 6 years investigating corruption in baseball as a DOI member and lived on the island off and on during that period. What you see is not. Whether the Ortiz investigation in the DR eventually reaches a powerful drug lord is up for debate, certainly among skeptics. According to two sources, "No way that guy would be touched," said the official. He knows people. Editors note Terry Thompson and Christian Redd are co-authors with former Boston detective and MLB investigator Eddie Dominguez of Baseball Cop: The Dark Side of America's National Pastime. Related slideshow: David Ortiz life in pictures provided by Photo Services.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.